In this episode of Vinyl Haul, I've got largely new releases to talk about, including a live album reissue, a re-recorded album, and the latest from a certain all-female Brazilian death metal band. So stick around and let's go through what I bought this month. First up is the debut album from Swedish heavy metal band Century. This is The Conquest of Time, released in 2023 by Electric Assault Records. So for a two-man project, the sound here is full and definitely not lacking. We have some strong power metal of the US variety here, along with clear moments of Maiden influence throughout, especially in the closing epic track Servants of the Iron Mask. Vocals on this record are powerful and mid-range, but also know when to go high, or in the case of most choruses, with a satisfying harmonic quality. Also, the solo work here utterly rips, not only in its execution, but also in its overall tone. It can even get a little flashy at times. I'd say fans of early Swedish heavy metal will likewise dig this album, as that sound is certainly here. As for more modern fare from that nation, you might also catch a little bit of Lethal Steel here, which wouldn't be an accident since Leo Salemno is also in that band. You might remember I covered Lethal Steel in a previous episode of Vinyl Haul, but if you don't remember that, you should do a search if interested. Anyways, the vinyl on this one is 1LP Classic Black. There you are. As for favorites on this one, definitely The Fighting Eagle, great song, as well as The Conquest of Time and Distant Mirror. You should check all three of those out. So some catchy songwriting and playing, not to mention, again, the great solo work and powerful vocals. The Conquest of Time is a fantastic debut album that never lets up. Absolutely looking forward to the next album, whenever that is. I can also see these guys on a label like Shadow Kingdom. It would make a whole lot of sense. They would be an excellent company over there. But yeah, great album. Check it out. Next is the second studio album from American thrash band Spiritworld. This is Death Western, released in 2022 by Century Media Records. So probably from the album cover as well as the intro track with its Western acoustic guitar playing and maracas, you might be asking yourself if this whole cowboy thing is merely a gimmick. Well, maybe so, maybe not. But it is the music we're talking about here, and I gotta say, as much as folks are calling this a metalcore album, I don't buy it so much. To me, this has a lot more of a crossover thing going on. I mean, there's definitely a hardcore influence here, even in the yelly vocals, but perhaps this is more in line with bands like Power Trip or Enforced, and definitely throw in some occasional Slayer worship riffing as well. It's kind of undeniable. To that effect, the riffing has a definite driving groove to it at times, but at other times more of a speed metal flavor. And if you like palm muting, that's here too. Again, Slayer. Also some occasional movie dialogue samples and tracks. They're fine and not annoying, but not really needed either. So there's that. Anyways, vinyl variant on this one is 1LP Classic Black. There you are. Also included in this one is a poster. I'll show that to you quickly. Great artwork there for you. Love it. And also a 4-page insert. There is no heaven. God's kingdom has burned. Lovely sentiment. Credits on the back as well. And inside, of course, you've got the lyrics. Favorites on this one, I would definitely include Relic of Damnation, probably one of the best tracks on here, as well as Committee of Buzzards and Lujuria Satanica. Music videos on this one for the track Death Western, as well as Relic of Damnation, and a lyric video for Ulcer is also available. You can find all of those at the Century Media Records YouTube channel. So while listening to everything past the brief intro track Mojave Bloodlust and the even more brief intro to the closing track 1000 Deaths, the Western theme really does take a backseat here to the heaviness and all-out bang-worthy tracks. Also digging the 36-minute runtime. I think it's perfect for this album. And again, I'd advise you to not be put off by others calling this a metalcore album because A, I hate metalcore as a whole, and B, This isn't a metalcore album. I mean, metallic hardcore might be closer to the truth, and yes, there is a difference, though crossover seems to cover it a bit better for me. Anyways, get past the labels and check this record out. It's worth hearing. Next up is the debut studio album from Chilean heavy metal band Shadows. This is Out for Blood, released in 2023 by Sentient Ruin Laboratories. So it's safe to say that Shadows is on the spookier side of occult-tinged heavy metal, with haunting vocals and keyboards overlapping some driving metal riffs. Speaking of vocals, they change up a bit here and there with some occasional lower register barks and sneers as well. A couple tracks even have an almost blackened vocal approach, especially in the track Forgotten Rights, which makes sense given the vibe of the entire album. Also, like Century, this is also a two-man project with Michael Mist on drums and John Shades on everything else. So when you hear lead trade-offs, that's one person's work layered in the studio, which works out a lot better than you might think. Anyways, keyboards, both synth and piano, are also prominent on this record, lending heavily to the spooky atmosphere, but without leaning too much into the cheesy. Stress on too much, I guess. They also add to the variety from track to track, which is to say that there is zero sameness here, and that every track has its own identity. Overall, I feel there are some allusions to gothic rock here too, but largely kept in a metal vein. 4 of these tracks were also on their debut EP, Into the Nightmare, which was released on cassette back in 2021. Those would be The Ripper, not a Judas Priest cover, Forgotten Rights, Dream Paralysis, and Into the Nightmare. Haven't heard that tape, so I'm not sure if these are the same versions or simply re-recordings, but I'm sure someone could let me know in the comments, as you so often do. Anyways, vinyl variant on this one is 1LP Classic Black. Nice custom labels there. Much the same on the reverse. You also get a 4-page insert here. Nice shot of the band. Band members listed on the reverse. And lyrics, and another shot of them on the inside. How about that? As for favorites, definitely Sacrifice, great track, as well as Into the Nightmare and Forgotten Rights. I would definitely say that if you're a fan of early Ghost or Merciful Fate with maybe hints of Christian death tossed in, there will be something here that you dig. I mean, it's a good album, though it also feels like a typical first album that this band is at the start of things and might evolve with future releases. Even still, check this one out, preferably when it's dark and stormy outside. Next is a live album from American power metal band Metal Church. This is Live, originally released in 1998, but now reissued in 2023 by High Roller Records. So this is a collection of live tracks during their tour in 1986, which is likely when they were opening for Metallica. Even the band isn't sure when and where these were otherwise recorded, though some are thought to be from a Dallas show. Also, very little in the way of touching up was done to these recordings, so expect some mistakes here and there. I know there are listeners who dig those details and actually respect them more than the doctored live records out there, but I don't know. Ultimately, I'm just not one of those people. I just don't care about that. But you might, so there you go. Anyways, the sound quality is pretty decent, but not perfect. Think very good bootleg. As for the performance, Wayne's vocals are on fire here, and tracks have an overall up-tempo energy to them. I mentioned mistakes before, but they really are at a bare minimum here and really aren't all that distracting. It's a good show, and you could even hear the audience a little bit. So, bonus. Anyways, vinyl variant here is 1LP white-red bicolor. It is limited to 250 copies. There's reverse for you. I'm also digging the mock Electra labels here. Nice detail. Also has a bit of a gatefold with some pictures of the band on tour. All of that. And of course, favorites. They include Start the Fire, one of my very favorite songs from this band. Also The Dark and Beyond the Black. Though to be truthful, every track is pretty good. It's definitely hard to choose just 3 of them. So I gotta say, this is a really great set list. I know if I was putting together a compilation of studio or live tracks from Metal Church, this would be the best of the best from the first 2 albums. As a live album, it works well as a single album due to how early it is in this band's career. That and I would have really been psyched if this came out in the 1980s when the material was more recent. Regardless, live is a fantastic document of the classic metal church era and is well worth the purchase. Next up is a re-recording of Sepultura's 1986 debut album, done by Brazilian thrash band Cavalera. This is Morbid Visions, released in 2023 by Nuclear Blast Records. Of course, it's no secret that the Cavalera brothers, Max and Igor, have been revisiting their former band's classic material in a live setting for quite a while now. They played Roots, Arise, and Beneath the Remains in full in concert, so maybe going back a bit further by re-recording their first two releases was in order, which I suppose makes Schizophrenia the odd man out. At any rate, the big question here is whether this most recent nostalgia dip actually improves upon a legendary release, or simply saps it of its raw energy and charm, as we've heard with countless other re-recordings of older albums from other bands. Well, let's get into it. First off, the production, as you'd assume, it's better, which by itself isn't saying a lot, as the original album's production was pretty tinny, uneven, and overall not good at all. So that end of things is a vast improvement. But what I dig here is that it wasn't overproduced. We've got some reverb-drenched vocals here that give off an almost cavernous vibe, keeping it rooted in the past a bit, and it's clear that they wanted to hang on to the spirit of the early material, which I feel like they succeeded at more or less. Also factor in that their instruments actually stay in tune, not to mention staying in time, and their English is a whole lot better at this point, so maybe those are a bonus as well. It's also considerably heavier than its forebear. There's a level of aggression and brutality that simply wasn't as prominent before, bringing it into the modern day, but without succumbing to the sterilization that can come with more recent production trends. I think we all know about those. Even the feedback is left in the mix, which is great. While listening to this, I kept thinking that they really did find a sweet spot between the two eras that really works, and hopefully you'll find that as well. Anyways, vinyl variant on this one is 1 LP red with black and white splatter. It is limited to 2,125 copies. In other words, plenty of them out there. There you go. Also an insert with some lyrics there for you. So also a shot of the band. Pretty cool. Favorites on this one, definitely Troops of Doom. I know the song's been recorded a few times at this point. I really like this one the best, though. Pretty cool. Also Crucifixion and Show Me the Wrath. There's also a new song on this release called Burn the Dead. It's a short and occasionally blasty track that gets along well with the other material. Definitely has a somewhat blackened quality as well, but also lots of aggression, notably in the chorus. Overall, it's simple, but effective. Lyric video here available for the title track, which you can find at the Nuclear Blast YouTube channel. So I should probably say that the original Morbid Visions album, the version that came out back in 1986, isn't exactly my go-to Sepultura album. Like many, I came in on Beneath the Remains back in 1989, and that really was the first properly produced record of theirs, not to mention a profound leap in songwriting. But this re-record of Morbid Visions is kind of making me rethink that early material a bit. Perhaps it'll give me a newfound appreciation for the first album. Who knows? Thing is, this re-record also stands a bit on its own, I think outside of any nostalgia draw. So if you're either curious about how well this revisit went for the Cavalera brothers, or you're new to the material and want to hear it well produced first, then definitely check this one out. Oh, also, I did order the other re-recorded release from them entitled Bestial Devastation. It's a bit slow getting to my mailbox, it seems, but if it makes it in time, I'll try to cover it in the next episode of Vinyl Haul. So, hurry up, Nuclear Blast! Next is the second studio album from American heavy speed metal band Leathürbitch. This is Shattered Vanity, released in 2023 by Shadow Kingdom Records. So a bit of a mix of glam, trad, and speed metal on this one. Not entirely dissimilar from a lot of the heavier LA metal bands from the first half of the 1980s. Not really Rat or Motley Crue, but definitely think Malice or Lizzie Borden. Though to be honest, the production isn't up to those particular standards. It's actually slightly hollow sounding, though the songs are certainly there, so maybe it's not the biggest deal in the world. Anyways, the vocals here run from mid-range to piercing highs, which would fit well in a number of metal genres, notably power, trad, and speed. Not sure that he's completely staying in tune at all times, but he's got the energy and delivery to make up for that. Even though his voice might be a little like or hate, I'm digging it enough. Also, I think others are really overstating the glam here. I mean, it shows up, but just not often enough as the other styles I've mentioned. Anyway, some cool lead trade-offs in many of the tracks as well, which elevates the material to quite a degree. And the riffs are often up-tempo, driving, and fun. In fact, the more up-tempo, the more fun. So throw that in too. The only track I got a little sick of was The Invitation, which really doubled down on the repetition. I mean, over and over again. And Nasty Reputation was fine, but a little forgettable. This also reminds me that side 1 is absolutely stronger than side 2, though the latter redeems itself with the final 2 tracks Morphina and Horror Unseen. As for vinyl variant, it is 1 LP sleazy splatter vinyl. It is limited to 700 copies. Watch the same on the reverse. Also got an insert here, a very shiny one. Some credits and a pic. And lyrics on the back. Favorites, definitely Shattered Vanity, cool song, as well as Shadow Mistress and Horror Unseen. If you're looking for music videos, they are available, one for Morphina and the other for The Dark Mirror. Morphina is at the Leathürbitch YouTube channel. That's leather with a U-R at the end, and then bitch, one word. And if you want to check out The Dark Mirror, it's at the Shadow Kingdom Records YouTube channel. So I'm definitely thinking fans of modern bands like Riot City, Metallion, and even Enforcer might dig this one. It certainly feels like a heavier and somewhat catchier record than their last album, so at least a small step up. Incidentally, in case you missed it, I did cover their last album about 2 episodes back, so check that out if interested. But overall, I really dig this latest album. Definitely enjoying the spin. Maybe you will as well. Next up is the second studio album from Brazilian death metal band Crypta. This is Shades of Sorrow, released in 2023 by Napalm Records. So the record starts and ends with a somber piano and strings passage, setting the tone of the album's title, traversing depression and anguish, which is to say that the prettiness soon makes way for the pummeling assault of dark clouds, with crunching guitars, manic drums, and the menacing screech of Fernanda's vocals. She also seems to have picked up more range and an overall variety in her singing this time around, from gravelly growls to death yells and a bit of the blackened as well. Speaking of Fernanda, it's also really nice to hear more of her stellar bass playing, a bit higher in the mix, complementing the killer guitar work. Yes, Sonia is gone, but the leads brought in part by newcomer Jessica Falci are certainly comparable and even inspired at times. Sometimes soaring, sometimes moody, sometimes dark. Perfect. I'd also say that there are more moments of melodicism here than the last album, but none of that really takes away from the brutality. Although some of that comes from leads or also distant guitar passages underneath that add some dark atmosphere. That atmosphere is especially evident in the more mid-paced parts, which does remind me that the variety of tempos here not only move things along, but also reinforce the themes of the album pretty well. Lots of undeniable talent on display throughout all the tracks, with some serious precision from all involved. Also, I have heard some people bitching about the 52-minute runtime, and normally I might too, but I didn't even notice the length while listening to this thing. So, credit to this band and this album for that. Anyways, vinyl variant on this one is 1 LP red, yellow, black splatter. This is also considered the Napalm Records exclusive Die Hard edition. You can get this vinyl variant exclusively in that edition. It also came with a matching slip mat. Again, just this version. This was limited to 500 copies, this variant, by the way. Very cool. I might replace my Dismember one. Who knows? On my review table in the next room. Pretty cool. There is also a gatefold with full lyrics, credits, and picture of the band. Nice. As for favorites, definitely Dark Clouds. I think it's a great opening song, past the intro, of course. Also, Poisonous Apathy, really cool, and The Other Side of Anger. Music videos are out there for The Other Side of Anger. Speaking of which, also Trial of Traitors and Lord of Ruins. You should check all of those out at the Napalm Records YouTube channel. So there will be listeners who simply want their death metal constantly ferocious and constant at one speed. And some of those same listeners might take issue with Crypta's occasional embracing of more melodic elements. I don't believe it's done excessively, though, and to be honest, I feel that it really does add to the overall dark theme. I don't want to use the term catchy, but there is a sort of hookiness in these tracks that separates it a bit from the debut album, and I think that's a good thing. Even still, there are plenty of bang-worthy moments and chaotic brutality here for the more stubborn death metal fans out there to enjoy. In fact, I'm going to go as far to say that this is a strong contender for my top 10 of 2023 list. That's right, because it's that good. Seriously, don't miss this record. So just a couple other records I picked up that I have less to talk about, but are certainly worth showing. Let's start with Anthrax. This is Statements of Euphoria. It was released in 1986 by Island Records. This one is a radio promo record. It was recorded on November 9th, 1988. It consists of an interview with band members, mainly discussing their then-current tour with Ozzy. Side A has the full interview, including a very cheesy interviewer. The other side has the same interview, but without the interviewer, in case you don't like him. Basically just the answers from the band. It also has an insert with the questions on one side here, as well as some cue points on the other, probably for production and all of that. Overall, it's pretty funny. Lots of joking around, mainly between Charlie, Scott, and Frank. So, good disc to find. Would have loved to have had this back in my college radio days because I would have definitely aired this. Pretty cool interview. Also picked up this 12-inch single from Great White. This is Face the Day. It was released in 1986 by Aegean Records. Face the Day was the first single from their second album, Shot in the Dark. The B-side has 2 tracks, Hard and Cold, as well as No Way, the latter which appeared on their debut EP, Out of the Night, back in 1983. And was then reissued in 1987 under the name On Your Knees, which is a little confusing. I don't know. It's what it goes by on this back here. I think more people know it as On Your Knees than Out of the Night. Anyways, these 2 B-side tracks are also found on the soundtrack to the 1985 Penelope Spheris film The Boys Next Door, which, surprisingly, I've never seen. Definitely cool single here. Definitely from the early era of this band, whose hard rock leanings I much prefer to their switch over to blues rock later on. So yeah, glad I got this one. So definitely let me know what you got, what you're getting, and what looks good for future releases. And if you got any of the records I mentioned, you should definitely tell me which ones you like or which ones you dislike. Both are great. And I'd love to hear any and all music suggestions that you might have for me. Leave that and anything else you think of in the comments below. Of course, if this is your first time seeing anything from my channel, my name is Matt. This is the Accusation Network, where each and every week I do videos on metal vinyl collecting. I also do videos on classic and modern metal in general. If you like the sound of that, you should definitely give this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and as always, share my videos with some of your friends. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.